Welcome everybody to the Owensboro Board of Commissioners regular meeting, October 17. At this time, I would like to ask the city clerk to assist the please call the roll.
Commissioner Jay Vallata.
Here.
Commissioner Larry Conder.
Here.
Mayor Tom Watson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bob Glenn.
Here.
Commissioner Pam Smithright.
Here.
Okay. At this, I'd like just to take a little moment of silence for the young man that passed away down in Alabama, Mississippi, that worked for the Messenger and Inquirer, trying to save, actually did save a child. And I think it would be nice if we just stopped and took a moment to talk to your God and pray in silence for this gentleman, please. Thank you. This time I'd like to call on Commissioner Jay Vallata to do the invocation and the pledge.
If you please bow your head or meditate in silent meditation, if that is your choosing. Our most gracious and heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to gather here today. We appreciate all the offerings that you give us each and every day and the opportunities that are presented before us. Please keep the Waller family in your prayers, as Mayor mentioned earlier, in their time of sorrow. Extraordinary things happen from ordinary people. That's just an example. Please protect those that are protecting us each and every day, those out fighting for our rights and freedoms, and those that protect us in our own city with our first responders, fire department, and police. We ask you to look over us, lead us, guide us, and direct us. In your Son, Jesus Christ's heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Vallata. Okay, we have a couple of presentations tonight. I want to invite Mr. Timothy Dukes to the podium. As we all know, we have somewhat of an issue of drug abuse in the state and in the country, and we'll let you tell your story. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Tim Dukes, and that would be 311 East Soar Circle in Greenville, Kentucky is my address. I'm here, as you mentioned, to address and to present to you a bit of information about a new start. We are a medication-assisted treatment program, and that is addiction medicine. We treat addiction medicine. Now, addiction takes many forms and fashions. We all have an addiction of some sort in our life. We typically think of addiction only because of the negative connotation that it has around opioids or alcohol, those type things. But there are other addictions. Mine is good food and a Coca-Cola with all the sugar and all the caffeine. So we all have addiction of some sort. But at a new start, we were born out of a pure need. Dr. Barry Hardison, who is a board-certified internal medicine physician, and Dr. Kelly Vincent, who is a board-certified family practice medicine, and both those gentlemen will be sitting for their addictionology boards this month as well, so they'll be double boarded. And myself started a new start out of a need, a pure need, and that need we saw was addiction medicine and behavioral medicine, not only in our communities, our county, our commonwealth, but in our country, is underserved. I was a hospital administrator for 23 years of most of my adult career, and I saw many years where mental health would come in our ER, or addiction would come in our ER, and they're just kind of swept under the rug, so to say, and pushed aside, to the point where we are as a country on the verge of an epidemic. Some would argue and say that we're already there. Most of us have had addiction in our families. We know someone, very immediate or very direct or indirect, however we want to look at that. Our mission at A New Start is to provide a pathway of hope to overcome addiction and to begin a new start in life. Everyone likes a do-over. Everyone wants a do-over. We started with a prayer. I appreciate that. We acknowledge that there's a higher being. Many of us acknowledge that there's an atonement, and that gives us a do-over. That gives us another start. We're grateful for that. So to tie that all together, what we do, I want to tell you three things: what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. Okay? What we do is treat opioid addiction specifically. We treat that with buprenorphine naloxone, a combination known as on the streets as Suboxone. That combination does two things. The naloxone, or the Narcan, and that stops the cravings or stops the withdrawal in that addicted patient or addicted person. The buprenorphine is a half agonist, which does not bind to the brain receptor of an opioid, and that takes care of the craving. Methadone alone is a full agonist. It binds to the brain. It binds to the receptors, therefore craving more, asking for more. And that's what happens to a person. A person doesn't wake up and say, I think I'll become an addict today. It's an unintended consequence 99% of the time of an accident, an injury, something of that nature. Are there folks that just start taking drugs to experiment and those type of things? Absolutely. And each and every one of us have a biochemistry and makeup that either says we like that when we take that Lortab or that Percocet or that codeine or that fentanyl, whatever our choice may be, when we take that for the first time, it gives us such a different feeling. It puts us on such a different level. If you're a person that has high anxiety, it takes that away. It makes you feel invincible, and you keep going after that same feeling, that same high, and it becomes elusive. So how do we do it? Again, we treat with medication. That addresses the body, the physical aspect of it. Then we require all of our patients to be in therapy. They have to be in group and individual behavioral therapy. That treats the mind. And then they're required to be in a 12-step program. Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and that treats the spirit. Those three things combined, medication, behavioral health intervention with group therapy and individual therapy, and with the 12-step program. Those three things have proven to put success rate of sobriety after 1 year in the upper 15 percentile. Abstinence is still the best way, absolutely. That's a patient preference, but not everyone can do abstinence. But if you can get that patient to abstinence, that is the best way. Get them off any and or all drugs or medications. But they will still need therapy, and they'll still need to attend AA, NA for that cognitive behavioral piece and that spiritual aspect to keep them headed in the right direction. You may ask, why do we do what we do? Well, Dr. Hardison and Dr. Vincent saw in their practice many patients that were part of that unintended consequence of becoming addicted to an opioid, needing treatment. And there were very nice outpatient or inpatient programs in our country. You've probably heard of Betty Ford. I don't know if you've heard of Hazleton Clinic, which is in Minnesota. It is the oldest and the most well-known addiction inpatient clinic in the world. Those are very costly. Those are very expensive. Not everyone can afford that. We wanted to bring this medicine to rural medicine or to rural communities to make it affordable, to make it available. And here's why. I told you what we do, how we do it, and now why we do it. We do it to give lives, to give people their lives back. to give moms and dads their families back, parents and grandparents their children back, and communities and employers their citizens and their employees back. This works. There are only 3 outcomes with opioid addiction: jail, incarceration, death, overdose, or sobriety. Everything we do at a New Start is geared toward the patient's successful go and journey to sobriety. I'm certainly honored to have the opportunity to speak to you, because one of the biggest obstacles that we face as a small business, as a startup, is educating the community. And when I mention that, many people have a preconceived notion already or idea of addiction. And I will stand here and admit to you, when my partners came to me some 5-6 years ago and said, "We have this idea, we'd like to get this started, we want you to join us," I was one of those that said, "Nah, I don't think that's the kind of medicine that I'd like to be in," because I personally believed that addiction was a moral dilemma, a character flaw. Make better decisions, pick better friends. It's not that simple. There is a chemistry in our body that will connect us to something that we have an addiction or an aversion for. But we can treat that like heart disease, like diabetes. Addiction is medically proven to be a chronic disease, a chronic brain disease. But like heart disease and diabetes, it cannot be cured, but it can be managed, and it can be managed quite well. And that is our goal as an organization. I certainly appreciate the time. I could have brought many bits and forms of information, but I left just a little bit of information for you guys to look at. Our goal, once again, is to treat everyone. I think what sets us apart, I'll say this real quick, what sets us apart as an organization is that we treat every patient that walks through our door with respect, with compassion, with love, with empathy. And the reason being is most of these individuals have alienated everyone in their family. They've lost their friends, they steal, they cheat, they lie. They do whatever they can to continue their habit. So we try to rebuild that connection as well, of the fact that you can be respected, you will be loved and treated with compassion. And if I hear anything from our patients through our patient surveys, that's really a key piece that they pick up on, that they're treated that way, just as we'd want to treat anyone that comes through our front doors. I'm certainly glad to answer any questions. One misnomer that I do want to put out there real quick, I know we have some law enforcement folks here, and what's going through their mind is Suboxone is sold on the street, and yes, it is. But it's not sold for the reason that you think it is. It's sold because that addict cannot get his or her number of Lortab that day, or their Percocet. You know, once you build, it just continues to build. You'll need 10 a day, then 20 a day, and then 30 a day of Lortab in order to feed that habit. But Kentucky, without a doubt, has the best. That Casper report is the best in the nation. Our nation really should follow that example, because every narcotic, you know who prescribed it, you know where they picked it up, when they picked it up, so on and so forth. So they can't doctor shop, and it's getting tougher and tougher to get pain meds unless you're buying them on the street or illegal. That's why many people are switching to heroin. It is cheap and found on the street easier. But that Casper is great. But Suboxone is sold on the street so the addict can buy it, because he or she can take that and they can function until they get their next prescription. Because you offer them a handful of Suboxone or a handful of their choice of painkillers, they're going to take the painkillers every time. That's what they want. I'd like to say that we have a 100% success rate, but you know, that'd be a misnomer. People that come, that are ready to change their lives and get their lives back in order, their success rate moves exponentially because they're ready to get on with their life. Some people struggle. We have kicked people out of our program, and we've seen them come back and be successful in 90 days or 180 days. So I appreciate the time. I appreciate, we certainly have enjoyed being in Owensboro. We're at 750 Salem Drive currently, but I'm actually working with and talking to a local architect and looking at some land for an opportunity for us to build and expand our practice. And we're a cash-only business, but that is changing. We are moving to, we will be accepting all insurances, and we're working with the state MCOs to get that taken care of, hopefully before the end of the year. So, again, thank you. I'm glad to answer or address any questions, if at all.
Well, thank you, Mr. Duke. You know, we have a mutual friend, and every time I would see her, she would say, you know, we have +5, down 1, +8, down 3. And so I got really interested in what you were doing because she's such a giver, you know, and not a taker. And so I thought it'd be great for you to be here. And I can attest that back in 1970, I had all the morphine you could give somebody every 3.5 hours, 24 hours a day for 27 straight days. And you can get addicted on that high. And it's difficult to do something with that. So I applaud you and your group, because we definitely have a problem in our community and in our state. And I wish you all the luck in the world. Anybody else from the commission?
Thank you.
Commissioner Condon.
Thank you, Mayor.
Well,
Due to the age of a young child, and I won't say certain things, but Saturday evening, just to put a little color to this, my wife and I were going down Frederick Street, right in front of Dan Howard Drugs, 2 cars parked. We drove by 3 times, laid on my horn right next to this lady. Didn't move. Didn't move. It was right on Frederick Street. Got out of the car, called 911. The first thing they said, don't approach them. Wait till everybody gets there. Ambulance got there, fire department, Station 1 got there really quick. About 3 minutes later, the police got there. And it was very evident that these things, these issues we have with our drugs is here. You may drive right by it and not know it at all, that it's happening. We just happened to see it at that time and tried to help this one lady. The car behind her, 2 young ladies, had all of their things right in the back of their car, knew exactly what they were doing, what was happening. So I truly do applaud your effort to not necessarily call it an addiction, but actually a disease of what is occurring in our community. We are very fortunate that certain things haven't happened here, but we are on that cusp of other things happening here. So thank you for your efforts, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Real quick, may I ask, do your first responders, your police officers, and your fire departments, do they have Narcan on their units?
yes, sir.
Excellent. That is certainly best practice. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, we'll go to presentation 4B, and I'd like to call on Commissioner Pam Smith-Wright to do the introductions, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
You know, as a person who is involved with anything that has to do with our veterans, I am happy to say that the city, along with some partners, are going to put up some flags for the recognition of 22 to end 22. And that means that 22 veterans a day commit suicide. And I think that we need to put these flags up to represent that, so that the community is aware that so many of our servicemen and women are taking their own lives. And the good thing about it was I got a call from Leslie McCarty, who is involved with the Kentucky chapter of Honor and Remember, and she asked me if we could do this, if I thought we could get this done, and when I talked to the mayor, you said yes. And then while speaking to some other friends, Brad Whitledge and Jared Williams from the Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio Regional Council of Carpenters, I presented it to them, and they wanted to be a part of it. So this is an effort of 3 different entities to make this possible. So right now I want to introduce Leslie McCarty if she has something she'd like to say.
I just really would like to say thank you for listening.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Oh, good Lord. Okay. Leslie McCarty, 4138 Highway 144, and I do take gift cards, birthday cards, Christmas
Yeah,
cards.
girl. Good
Okay.
job.
I just want to say thank you to the city of Owensboro for doing this, for recognizing that veterans do take their own lives. And I got the inspiration for this from a friend of a friend, a mutual friend of ours, Gold Star mother Kathy Mullins. Her friend Lori Tinsley, her son, took his life, and she decided during September for Suicide Awareness Month that she would put up 660 flags representing the number of veterans that take their life in a month. And I just thought we need to do something. So thank you very much.
Welcome. Have you seen the Facebook stuff where they're doing 22 push-ups a day?
Yes, I
That
can't.
is so cool.
It is really cool, and I can't do but one push-up.
I'm
So.
not in there yet, but
Right.
my niece did that down in Georgia, and I just thought that was so cool to just get up 22 push-ups every day for a veteran that takes their own life. It's spooky how awesome that is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to recognize at this point Brad Whitledge and Jared Williams. Jared, do you want to go first? Did you have anything you wanted to say, or is he the spokesman for the?
No, come on, Brad. Go ahead, take a run at it. You're a
My name is
Marine.
Jared Williams. I live in Newburgh, Indiana. It's 7099 Newburgh, Indiana. It's Walden Road, I'm sorry. But no, I just wanted to say that we're really happy to be a part of this and have the opportunity to be here. It's one thing that we've been working on together since I've taken the position, working with Brad. He's kind of shown me the ropes and taught me quite a bit. But one thing that we've talked about is wanting to get involved in more community organizations and getting our name a little better known. We're with the Carpenters and Millwrights local, located in Newburgh. But it's something that we do. We try to, it's called brand building. We have meetings every month, and we talk about different organizations that we can help out or be a part of. And this is one that just kind of, it all came together. And so pretty fortunate for us to be here.
Thank you.
It's Brad Whitledge. I live on 7940 Barnett Road in Owensboro, Kentucky. I had a nice thing typed up, and I left it in the truck. And I did. I spent
Just
about a week on it.
let her go, man.
This is
Talk
it.
from the
Yeah,
heart,
no,
baby.
I do. I appreciate it. It was just luck that I've been wanting to meet Pam for a while, and we sat down and ate, and this come about, and it's one of the best things we've done. I've had this position about 4 years, so and I'm really proud of it. And I appreciate all the help from everybody up there. So, and it's funny because I've got 9. And there's 9 people up there if y'all want a flag.
I want a flag.
You want a flag?
So the carpenters are hammering this issue home, is that correct? Yes. All right. Austin, I knew you was going to do that. I just beat you to it. Thank you, sir. Austin, would you come up here and hold my flag up for me?
Thank you.
You hold my flag up for me. This is great. So when was this going to happen, Commissioner?
Okay, so what we're going to do is our Public Works Department is going to draw out a diagram in the Shelton Memorial.
In it?
Well, you know, in those grassy
Grass
spots.
area?
And, you know, they're going to do a design. And then on is it the 27th? The 27th of October, all of us, and anybody who'd like to,
I'll sing God Bless America for you.
okay, we're going to go and help put down a couple of flags and then let them do their thing, because they're going to figure this out.
How many
And
flags?
660. And then they will stay up, it's like 2 weeks before Veterans Day to 2 weeks after Veterans Day. And so as the parade route goes down past the Shelton Memorial, the flags will be there.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you allowing this to
Welcome.
happen.
And we won't kneel. We'll stand, won't we?
We will stand.
All right, good. Okay, thank you. Any other comments, please? Okay, at this time, we go to business. Item number 5A, consider the minutes approval for dated October 3, October 10, 2017. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any comment from the commission? Any comment from the public? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, and we'll welcome back Counselor Ed Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. The first is Ordinance 28-2017, an ordinance amending references to Parks and Recreation Manager to Parks and Recreation Director in Chapter 19, Article 1 of the Owensboro Municipal Code, and further amending Chapter 19, Article 1, Section 19-9, providing for a maximum suspension period of 96 hours by Parks and Recreation Director, Public Works Director, or Supervisor or Caretaker in charge of the park, and further amending Chapter 19, Article 1, Section 19-5 to establish hours of use for Smothers Park, Ronald L. Logston Spray Park, the Atkinson Greenbelt Park, and the Street Soccer Court in Legion Park. Publicly read for approval on second reading, October 17, 2017.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by, oops, excuse me, roll call. City Clerk Beth Cecil.
Commissioner Villada,
Yes.
Commissioner Conder,
Yes.
Mayor Watson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Glenn,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith-Wright.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 6B, Counselor.
Thank you. Mayor,
Welcome.
Commissioners, this is a joint Davis County Fiscal Court Ordinance number 520-2, and also the City of Owensboro Ordinance 29-2017. It's an ordinance of the Davis County Fiscal Court in the City of Owensboro jointly creating a new section in Article 3 of the Owensboro Municipal Code prohibiting the operation of golf carts, low-speed vehicles, or utility vehicles on all public roadways, streets, or highways within Davis County and the City of Owensboro. Publicly read for approval on second reading, October 17th, 2017.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve. Could I have a second,
Second.
please? Comments from the commission? I have one comment, Counselor. What about these motorized wheelchairs? How does this affect them if they get off the sidewalk, sir?
It doesn't,
Okay.
that would not count. Of course, from a public safety perspective, we ask that they use the sidewalks when they can, and use the designated crosswalks to get from one place to another. That's the best place for someone in a motorized wheelchair to access the street.
Okay, you know, the adults over at Winter Foster Center, they have a tendency to get out and get a little crazy, so I just wanted to make sure they understood they need to use the sidewalks and the crosswalk.
Sir.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from the public? Hearing none, roll call. City Clerk Beth Cecil.
Commissioner Conder,
Yes.
Mayor Watson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Glenn,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith-Wright,
Aye.
Commissioner Villada.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Counselor, item 6C.
Ordinance 30-2017, an ordinance affirming and adopting the revised goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan for Owensboro, Whitesville, and Davis County. Publicly read for approval on second reading, October 17th, 2017.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments from the commission?
Yes, Mayor.
Commissioner Condor,
Thank you, Mayor.
you're welcome.
Mr. Hamilton, I notice from OMPC is in the audience. If, is it Mike? Mike? Yes, please. He could answer some questions.
Sorry about your luck, bud.
It's all right. Mike Hill, OMPC, 200 East 3rd Street.
Thank you, Mike. In looking at the findings and facts, a couple of things were changed in the comprehensive plan. Economic development considerations, transportation objectives, the intermodal facilities and everything else that's happened there. And this document actually changes every 5 years or so, correct?
Yes.
So with the approval from both City of Owensboro, Davis County Physical Court, and the City of Whitesville, this then becomes a living document, or is it put on a shelf? Is what happens?
No, we use it daily. In OMPC's situation, we take the goals and objectives and we turn them into our zoning ordinances, our subdivision regulations, other policies that we use on a daily basis to make decisions for development and growth and environmental preservation in the community.
So it is used consistently
Yes.
by everyone to make sure that we're following these goals and objectives. When you had your public meeting, it was pretty evident that it actually turned into more of a gripe session than anything else. Didn't actually address this document itself. At that meeting, there were supposed to have been some people to give you a little bit of feedback from what would they like to see changed within state regulations or local regulations. How much feedback did you really get from all of that bickering back and forth?
Yeah, from that meeting, we got very little. There may have been 2 or 3 items from concerns that were expressed that made their way into one of the amended goals and objectives. But for the most part, what was discussed there really wasn't related to comprehensive plan.
Well, thank you for your work on this. It's great that it is a living document, that it actually is used on a consistent basis. So thank you for everything you've done on this, too.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Glenn.
I just have one quick question. If you don't feel comfortable answering it, you can just tell me and I'll
Okay.
pursue it with Brian or somebody.
Sure.
One of the big complaints we hear all the time from small businesses is the requirement that they put up hedges and bushes and that kind of thing. And then eventually they grow up and nobody can see around them and they're, craning their necks to turn. Is that something you heard and got feedback about during the revision of this document, the requirements? I know it goes back to Dave Adkins and he was trying to make Owensboro more beautiful. I've got that. But it really is a pain for businesses and nonprofits, anybody. So I just wondered. And again, you can say, I don't.
No, actually, no. Any of the comments we received were not specifically related to that issue, and that issue would be more of a zoning ordinance issue rather than a comprehensive plan issue as well. So.
But is that something that you'd look at revising down the road if you got enough feedback?
Oh yeah, we're always willing to look at anything in the zoning ordinance or any other one of our documents. If there's an issue that you all have or anyone has, we're certainly willing to discuss it.
And who would be the last question? Who would be the conduit in your office? You or somebody else?
Myself or Brian Howard.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith-Wright.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Piggybacking on what Bob was just saying, if you go to like Fridays or Old Charlie's or some of those places out there and you're coming out, those hedges are so high that people are that far from an accident all the time because they don't keep them low enough so you can see that a car is coming. So that might be something you may want to look at.
Sure. Yeah, we certainly don't want to cause any public safety issues with any of our ordinances.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Counselor.
Just one clarification, Mayor, if I
Sure.
would, and it just, obviously the ordinances themselves are yours. And anything that you wish to initiate to be looked at or to change or amended, we can initiate that here at the city also. And then work with the folks at Planning and Zoning to make that happen. And then on the issues when there's safety-related issues like site triangles and things like that, anytime you can bring that up to through Bill to our attention, sooner the better, because we'll immediately, of course, have our Public Works folks and our engineering folks go look at that and make an immediate safety correction if needed.
Excellent point. Uh-oh, real estate guy. Go ahead, Commissioner Velada.
Well, I just wanted to clarify something, Mike. I get asked a lot of questions, and I basically refer people to you guys. So just want you to know, I don't try to answer the questions because basically we're the last ones that have to make decisions when it becomes beyond your all's scope, whether it be the staff at OMPC or whether it be the Board of Planning and Zoning. But just wanted to make sure that the public understands that we don't make the rules. We basically are just going by what you guys have laid out for us, and you guys are mandated a lot by what the state requires you guys to meet as far as your requirements. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of our regulations are stemmed from state statutes. We work with that as a template and then create our regulations locally. Of course, our zoning ordinance is adopted by City Commission, Davis County Fiscal Court, City of Whitesville as well.
Thank you.
Well, one of the guys that were fussing a little bit, and I had a chat after your open public meeting, and I brought the question to him because does it make any sense to have a regional state? It doesn't make any sense, does it? Regional state, but kind of break the state up into regions and get that book for the state regulations to match that demographic and that type of community as it changes from Covington to Paducah, and then let the local governments manage their own local ordinances. And that's the idea that that person is going to take to Frankfurt. So I didn't know if that was I didn't have a chance to talk to you or Brian, so I just throwing this out there as a thought process.
Yeah, I assume you're talking about the Kentucky Building Code.
Correct.
Because that is the state level document that we hear most
Right.
often about.
But you know, each community is kind of a little bit, Northern Kentucky is a whole lot different than Fulton.
Sure.
So I just did, that was my suggestion to him, look at the way to regionalize it a little bit so it'll be more appropriate for the business communities that that are in that region.
Sure, I see some benefit in that. Again, it would have to be initiated and then adopted at the state level, but yeah, that seems like a good idea.
There's one state level guy that's interested in that. You know who that is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, City Clerk, where are we? We voting? Roll call, please.
Mayor Watson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Glenn?
Yes.
Commissioner Smithroyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Velada?
Yes.
Mr. Condor?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 7, ordinance, please. Counselor?
Ordinance 31-2017, an ordinance amending the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018, and amending Ordinance 9-2017 to receive grant awards and provide for respective expenditures, to provide funding for the purchase of floor replacement at the Sports Center, and to make a correction in the GIS fund. Introduced and publicly read on first reading October 17th, 2017.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd call on the city manager to elaborate, please, on 7A.
Thank you, Mayor. For
You're
the
welcome.
commission, this budget amendment has 4 elements to it. The first is 18-15, concerning the Homeland Security Grant Fund. Originally, this was a budget amendment back in June of 2017 to receive $23,760 as a Homeland Security grant, and that was to purchase body armor, tasers, and taser supplies. With only 24 days left in the fiscal year after receiving those funds, we couldn't spend the money that quickly and do justice to the spending. So this budget amendment is your authorization to carry over that money from last fiscal year to this fiscal year so we can do better research and purchase accordingly. It has no impact on the general fund. 18-16 concerns the state and federal drug fund. That's where OPD will assist state and federal agencies fighting drug crime, and they are compensated for that action by those agencies. This is your authorization for OPD to spend $14,405 out of their pooled money. $3,380 would go to send an officer to the National FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, and $11,025 for software storage on the cloud, including software to investigate cell phone forensic crime. No cost to the general fund. 18-17 impacts the GIS, the City County OMU RWRA Consortium. There was an internal error discovered by our finance department where we overestimated revenues by $863. This reduces expenditures by that same $863. And finally, 18-18 impacts the Fleet and Facilities or Maintenance Fund, where we save money annually for large future purchases like basketball floors. We could have purchased a new floor for $150,000, but we were going to do that next year in 18-19. But we found a gently used floor for $80,000. That floor had been used for 6 NCAA regional tournament games and associated practice sessions. It comes with a 1-year warranty, and we will not release payment until it's installed and we're satisfied that it's a good floor. So what this budget amendment does is pull $99,500 forward from 18-19 to use in 17. Now, why $99,000 rather than $80,000? That's for installation cost, which would have gone with that $150,000 floor already. This saves the city $70,000 by purchasing it some 9 months early. No impact on the general fund, with the exception of the general fund provides funding for the Fleet Facilities Maintenance Fund to save for those projects. That's the 4 elements of the budget amendment, Mayor.
And I know for a fact that that floor was a mess at the Sports Center, where it had been taken down and put back in so many times over the years that it really didn't take a lot of care in piecing that jigsaw puzzle together. There were dead spots in the floor, and it really wasn't something that we could be proud of as a community when we have such, we have large tournaments. We've contracted with this Canadian Pro League to come and play, plus Kentucky Wesleyan. So I thought it was worthwhile to go ahead and move this up a year, and at the same time partnering with Spectra to try and do some message boards in the Sports Center and make that, a gathering place for our community again. So any discussion, any other discussion?
Just a quick question.
Okay, quick question. Commissioner Glenn.
Who will install the floor, Spectra or city employees, the new floor?
Spectra will install it.
Does that save us any money, or is it all the same dollars?
Same pocketbook, yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Sure. Any other discussion? Public? It's going to be a good thing. I know that all the schools are very excited about it. Okay, we'll have roll call vote. Nope. Yes? First reading. First reading. I take that back. Somebody wrote something wrong on my book, and I'm just going to beat them up after the game. Okay. All right. Item number 8, municipal orders.
Municipal Order 30-2017, a municipal order approving the partial extraordinary redemption on December 1st, 2017 of the City of Owensboro, Kentucky General Obligation Bond Anticipation Notes. Introduced and publicly read for approval on 1 reading, October 17th, 2017.
Okay. City Manager, can you give us some more information about this municipal order, please?
Yes, Mayor, I can. Beth, would you bring that slide up, please?
Technology. Get that on your iPhone, Austin? No. Oh, okay.
Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
As a point of order, before the discussion starts, a motion and a second, in that there will be a vote today.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion from the public? Hearing none. How about, do I have some motions from the commission? No? What, you second?
Motion and second.
Motion and second.
Yeah?
We can correct it, whatever works.
We have a motion and a second, and now I think, Bill?
Okay,
Is that right,
Bill.
Mayor?
That's all right with me.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a rather complicated subject, and Ed and I and Angela spent a couple of hours yesterday trying to boil it down to its essence, and I've got that on the screen now. Currently, we have bond availability of almost $16 million. That is, we've bonded some already. We've already borrowed it in 2016 D-Series bond. We also have bond anticipation notes, short-term borrowing And all of that adds up to almost $16 million. The remaining bond usage would be for a new parking garage, that is to support the new hotel, the Associate Apartments, Alorica Parking, the International Bluegrass Music Museum, the Convention Center. You might recall the Convention Center was originally designed smaller. It was built larger with inadequate parking. There are some conventions that cannot come to Owensboro or signaled they will not come back unless we have adequate hotels and the parking to go with it. In all of downtown, yes, Mayor. Temporary Alorica parking, the Geip lot, because we have to displace some of our parking to lay down construction material to build these other projects. We need temporary parking. A centralized transit facility. We've talked about the need for Wayne Shelton and Public Works to move that offset current transit facility to a center location where we think it's quite possible by having them centrally located, we'll be able to do with one fewer bus routes and save money over time. It allows you authority, once the courts of Texas have allowed us to proceed, if you so desire, to light the Blue Bridge very quickly and any other transportation items that may remain. For example, there are some places that have said, we'd like to do projects downtown if we could bury lines underground. The proposal tonight that we present the Commission, in accordance with your direction for us to reduce bonding as much as possible, to reduce the debt load of the city, is this in December to redeem $2 million of the band fund. That is, turn it back in. We're not going to borrow that $2 million long term that we had planned to. There is an additional redemption period. We're allowed to redeem anything else in 2019 that the Commission cares to. Now, there is an alternate. You could look at this and say, well, we could redeem more now. You might do that by eliminating the Blue Bridge lighting, and you could wait 5 years for the TIF to build up enough funds to pay for that lighting in cash. Either way, we recommend that you redeem $2 million now, reduce our debt load, and be prepared to review this again in 2019 should you care to reduce it again and eliminate further projects. That's a short discussion of a very complicated topic.
It's very complicated. Okay, so can we start all over?
Yes, sir, and I'd probably ask Ed or Angela to pick up at that point.
Okay, how much did we borrow to begin with? Ed or Angela?
I can answer that.
Okay, go for it.
We borrowed, Bill has listed here the two items. We've got the
15-9.
2016 D series, which means we've already borrowed A, B, and C, so the next series of bonds was D.
Okay.
And what we borrowed there, we borrowed $9,380,000.
Okay, bond availability says 15.
Yes.
So explain that to me, we're getting 9.
Well, that's the series, that's the bond series. If you go down to the next line item there, the 2016 BAN, the bond anticipation note, we that was issued for the amount of $6,565,000.
Okay.
Now, those two amounts won't equal the 15.9.
All right.
I can explain that.
You're gonna let her go.
The amounts that I just gave to you is the par value of the bonds.
Par value meaning?
That's a stated face value.
Okay.
Okay. So our investors, through the bidding process, we bid our bonds. They paid more than face value. So we actually got more in our pockets from issuing those bonds than what the face value was.
So they thought a lot of the projects.
That's the way I interpret that, yes. Okay. So we've got the face value, we've got what we call the premium, where the investors paid extra, less the bond issue costs. And that would consist of what we pay to Moody's to do our rating. We pay our financial advisor who manages a lot of the bonding transactions, as well as our bond counsel. So when we take the par value plus the premium minus the issue costs, you get $15,946,501.
Between the D series and the bond
That's correct.
anticipation.
That's the sum of the two.
Okay. So what was the original? There were 3 people on the commission that night that voted for this. Is that correct?
I
had
don't recall.
A mayoral forum, and one guy was missing, and then 2 people were missing from the commission. So 3 people actually borrowed this money. Is that correct?
Mayor, I don't recall who.
We'd have to look up, Mayor, the ordinance and look at the attendance from that day in the meeting minutes, and we certainly can get back to you on that.
Okay, just trying to, trying to recall that. All right. Any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Condor.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill, staff, I truly applaud you for going through this exercise. If looking at the city's finances over the last 9 months, this is one of the largest issues that we wanted to try to do, was to reduce debt or potential debt of the city going forward in order to enhance our credit rating and everything else that we've done with the city. So the $2 million is a great start to be able to try to do those things that we wanted to do for a long, long period of time. Now, the next issue we have to manage is over the next 2 years, because you don't have the next redemption option until December of 2019. So in between now and then, we will need to make sure that if the uses of those funds that is listed as City Manager Parrish puts up there is what we want to do. And if not, we will have the next option, December of 2019, to place back more is what we'll be able to do. So thank you very much, Bill, Angela, Ed. Job well done. Wish it was more, but hopefully it was a great deal.
Okay, so y'all clear with that? Join the club. Okay, so basically we sent back $2 million of a bond when we had the opportunity to send it back instead of paying interest on it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Of the note.
Of the note. So how much interest have we paid on this initial deal?
We, in the fiscal year 2016, we paid, for the two combined, was $227,000. That was interest only.
Interest only. And what have we achieved through this bond?
Well, we have to have the money on hand before we can award a bid
For
the parking garage.
Parking garage.
Okay, so we're still talking about the parking garage next to the hotel that hasn't been built yet in front of the convention center, basically.
That's correct.
Mayor, if I
knew
could-
Ed would straighten us out, would you there,
Well, I can
Councilman?
expand on it, is what I can do.
Okay,
Mayor.
I wished you would.
The question on the table is, what have we done with it so far?
Right.
One, we've gone through the design process of the parking garage.
Okay.
We've had the money in the bank to be able to go ahead and put out the bid. We had a pre-bid meeting
For the parking garage.
garage. We had a pre-bid meeting today. It was well attended by contractors, and we expect a very competitive bid. We also were able to complete the temporary improvements needed in order to get the Guype lot finished. What I think that is important to talk about, because there's 114 parking spaces right now on the surface.
On the old Guype lot.
On the lot in which we're going to build the parking garage.
Okay.
And in order to get the jobs that came in from Alorica, where there's 350 new employees since they moved in now, as of today.
That's the number, 350?
350 right now. They've got training, orientation sessions of 50 people apiece that are every 2 weeks right now. And they expect to have 500 employed by the end of the year. Those are the numbers that came in from EDC, and our new best friend over there, Mark, today, who ran those down, and really appreciate that from him. In order to get them to choose Owensboro, the building was great. They loved downtown and where it was going. There was not adequate parking. So as part of the incentive package to have them come to Owensboro, we had to provide 114 parking spaces, and those are at where Shakers used to be and BB&T owned, immediately west of the Grits garage. They're just surface parking right now. In order to build a parking garage, we have to have some place to put them within walking distance for the year to year and a half it takes to build the parking garage. Associated with the purchase of the property where the muffler shop is, who the common owners between the Guype lot and the muffler shop, all as part of that acquisition and the need for an alternate location for all of those parking spaces, the 114 parking spaces. We did the improvements to the lot that is owned by GEIP. Now that does two things for us. One, it gets us the temporary parking. But two, if you recall, it was the only area downtown that was a big gravel lot for a long, long time. And it was used for parking, overflow parking. They were gracious enough to just allow it to be used for conventions, to include all the RVs that came in for various conventions. And so by doing that improvement, we have a place to put the Alorica folks when we build the parking garage. And when the hotel and apartment complex is built, that 200 families or 200 apartment dwellers are going to need a place to park. And what it does is it also creates a business opportunity where they will have some surface parking available to rent, lease, use, whatever arrangement they can make.
Business opportunity for whom?
Business opportunity to grow for the owners of the lot.
And who are the owners of the lot?
Yeah, the owners of the lot, which is still a long-established business here in Owensboro, which is GEIP.
Okay.
So we get to use it for our time. It gets improved, improves the look of downtown. We still get to use it for overflow for the conventions, and it provides a place for eventual residents of downtown, which is, according to the master plan that was developed back in 2006 and 2007, residents downtown, people living downtown, is the ultimate goal for economic development and to boost the economy in the downtown. So this all builds towards that. And the funds so far, one, we got the funding, designing the lots, designing the parking garage, doing the acquisition, the build out of the GEIP lot. It was all building towards what we're going to do in the next 30 days, unless there's different direction, and that is to award the parking garage to be built, which that then sets all these other pieces in motion. And without the parking garage and without the alternate parking at the GEIP lot, the future expansion possibilities of Alorica are extremely limited, or anyone else that wants to build downtown. And the reason being is the parking is absolutely at a premium. Back in that original master plan, a parking garage was called for down by the convention center, and that's when the convention center was much, much smaller. The convention center is about 3 times larger than that initial plan, and it's being utilized. It's a home run for Owensboro. But that parking garage was never built. And since then, the Bluegrass Museum, which does not have parking on its lot, is now well under construction. You've got the residential and hotels. You've got 3 times the size of the convention center. And you have a unanticipated use of Alorica bringing in right now 350 people and up to 500 by the end of the year. All those put together all stems from that original master plan and is building off it. This parking garage, the money was not available when the convention center was built. Under the TIF, those funds will then be repaid to the city of Owensboro through state-generated income or sales tax. Really an opportunity for us to hit a home run in that area. But the use of those funds, we took a hard look at it, understanding that when we borrowed the 2016 D series, we didn't know for sure that money was going to be used over $10 million. So the band anticipation notes anticipated being able to do exactly what you all are doing now, and that is making a decision that this is more than we need, cash on hand, returning those, not paying interest on it anymore, keeping the cash on hand to do the projects that are here, and then moving forward with another opportunity to do the same thing as was discussed by Mr. Parrish in October, or December of 2019. So hopefully that puts it all in perspective. We have utilized the funds, and we'll continue to do that. Now, one more thing I think is important is holding on to those funds. When you look at the interest rate on the band funds and the interest rate we get with our cash on hand through our bidding process with our bank, the cost of holding on to those band funds of that $2 million since we borrowed it in 2016, it's only been about $10,000. So if you look at what it's cost us to hold those funds for that full year, it's about $10,000, not the full $219,000 that we paid in interest. The cost of that $2 million is around $10,000, $12,000. So that's what we have into holding on to those, and that's what you also have on holding those funds that remain in the band that are unused up until your next opportunity to redeem them. So we're working hard to get that number down, and as soon as we have that firm number after the bid on the parking garage, then we'll come back and talk to Bill about where we are and make a recommendation for another redemption.
Okay, so bottom line, how much more are we going to have to borrow to build the parking garage?
Mayor, we won't have to borrow any money, and if this parking garage comes in the bids where the existing budget isn't covering it, then we will ask you all to consider downsizing, doing something different, because it doesn't warrant more than you already have borrowed and already have budgeted.
Okay, and I've been asked, why not wait until the builder of the hotel starts, and make sure that that's going to happen before we spend our money on a parking garage?
Well, I think that's a really good and warranted question too, Mayor. There's a few things that come into play there. One is that there are other entities such as the Bluegrass Museum and the other conventions that have had inadequate parking that need the parking garage. So we've got convention centers already built, there's a need. We've got the Bluegrass Museum's about to open, there's a need. We've got the Alorica building that needs additional parking because they want to expand. As far as I understand, they found that the workforce here in Owensboro is fantastic, and I expect that's going to grow. So those are three things. The second thing about that's even if the hotel was never built. Now, with the hotel, the surface parking, there's about 140, I'm guesstimating from memory, Mayor, so don't hold me to this number, 140 some spots over where the hotel is going to be built that are occupied by Alorica workers. Just like we had to do something with the Gype lot, we're going to move 114 Alorica employees over to the Gype lot while we build. Then the developers of the hotel and the apartments need to move their 140 some parking spots somewhere. But it can't be remote. They've got to be within walking distance so those Alorica people can get back and forth. And they have an opportunity once we build the parking garage. They can rent spaces from you all, and out of the parking garage, they could rent spaces from the Gype lot and move over there after ours are out. But downtown, where it's at, does not work to have both of those being constructed at the same time. So that's kind of the tier block. But even if the hotel and the apartment complex wasn't built there, the need for the parking garage has been established way back from the beginning. And from our staff perspective, from the perspective of Spectra, from the perspective of Tim Ross, our special events director, that parking garage is needed with or without the new hotel, Mayor.
Okay, and so final question, how does the Grits garage fold into this scenario? Could you please let the...
Sure. Grits, in my opinion, there's two aspects to that. One, Grits is a fantastically successful example of public transportation in what they do, and they're growing. And so the likelihood is that Grits is going to expand and probably build onto that existing parking garage for office space purposes. And if you go down past there, you see a green space in front where they have opportunity to do that. The second part of this is, and how it wraps into the whole downtown, I guess, train that's moving, is that the Alorica folks leased out all the remaining parking spaces in the Grits garage. They maxed it out, and they have a long-term lease with them. So their parking needs right now today are met. But any expansion or any new construction that would put any of those folks without a parking space, there's nowhere else for them to go. So hopefully that answers your question, Mayor.
Okay, good. Isn't he good? Woo! Commissioner Condor.
Ed, just curious, does the city own any other properties then in that area that could be considered even on top of the parking garage for future expansion? What do we own today?
Well, I think one of the, we're in partnership, Economic Development Partners, which is an entity that was created to purchase property and do economic development. That entity owns property around there. They own the 2 parking lots that are primarily used by Boardwalk, and those are tied up in long-term leases to account for their employees. The city of Owensboro has access to those, and the public, the citizens, have access to those nights and weekends. So they can go in there and park, and it's used very often. During the day, when we have a lot of conventions, though, they're parked in there from the Boardwalk employees. The city of Owensboro itself, the only remaining piece of property that we have that could eventually be built out into a parking garage is the green space in front of the convention center. It could be utilized for parking if necessary, although both from an aesthetic perspective and from a programming perspective, if you've ever gone to some of the, certainly the dog show, but if you've ever gone to some of the other events where they utilize that space,
Dog show in the green space?
The dog show in the green space, yes, sir.
For different reasons.
Yes, sir. But downtown now, that's, as far as my look at it, that's the only thing that the city now owns that's not built out or otherwise restricted. Obviously, McConnell Plaza has federal grants involved. Right. The Smothers Park area is completely built out. Down where the tennis house has been transferred and is under a restrictive covenant that it must be built out with residential units starting within 3 years of this past October 1st.
State that again, please. What you just said?
Well, back when the convention center was first built, okay, we hired Global Spectrum to do an analysis and say, what do we need to make this convention center successful? 1 hotel? Absolutely. 2 hotels? It was a bare minimum to get enough rooms to have the conventions come in. And the hotelier, the developer of the land, not the hotelier, but the developer of the land, purchased the Holiday Inn space, had an option on the old Executive Inn tennis facility, and owned the parking lot that now is the convention center parking lot. We needed that space. So in a deal back in 2013 that involved about $2.3 million worth of consideration for these land swaps and purchases and everything else, where the tennis house is now went under contract. Now, then a new
Ed.
Well, went under contract meaning that they had a set period of time in which to purchase that land. And that involved, there's some environmental remediation consideration in that, there was a cash in that, and there was also some consideration for some of the sewer systems that were put in. But all in all, that was an option. With a restrictive covenant that they could only build it if within 3 years they started construction on multi-unit residential, which builds on what we're trying to do downtown in the Anchor End. Then the Mavericks came into play. And there was a request by the city to extend that period of time to accommodate a practice facility for the Mavericks. And that drove economic development. It was a cool thing to have in our community, and it really was one of those things where you say, hey, we have a pro basketball team. And they practiced, and they needed a practice facility. We had it there. Developer wasn't immediately ready from a market analysis to start construction on that, so it worked out really well. The Mavericks ended their contract, ended October 1st, with their lease. We closed on that property as soon as that lease, we knew that lease was not going to be renewed with the Mavericks. So that put us in a position now where the clock has started, and they now have the clock started with the 3 years. And if that doesn't happen, the city has the right to buy that property back for that same $500,000.
So the old tennis house facility clock is running now. It's in someone else's hands.
Yes, sir.
For them to develop in the next 3 years.
Minus the property that we cut away from it to reserve for a river walk and to reserve for permanent access down to the lower portion, basically what we call the summer pool area, that lower tier down in front of the riverfront. So we cut away much of the property that was originally that executive and tennis facility. So that clock has started as of October 1st.
A lot of moving parts, Mayor.
So the 1.2 million that was paid for that area, what did that include?
Mayor, the $1.2 million area
Mhm.
was where the muffler shop is,
Okay.
and where HRG currently resides in there, in that building directly across from the green space. That was just those two pieces of property. We have done an analysis. Right now, that block is assessed at about $2.9 million. Once the hotel and event center, hotel and apartment complexes are built, about $35 to $37 million property value. And our revenue from that property goes from about $5,700 a year to about $91,000 a year in property taxes, plus all the occupational, the economic impact of 200 families living downtown, and having the opportunity to have over 300 hotel rooms with direct walking connectivity to the event center, which puts us in a whole nother category, according to the experts that run our convention center, a whole nother category for conventions. So I think you're right, Mayor, there's a lot of moving parts.
So where'd that 1.2 go?
The 1.2 went back to Economic Development
Okay.
Fund to repay that fund for the money that was used to initially purchase the properties, Mayor. It was just a receivable back into Economic Development and put the fund back to its balance.
So some of that was part of those 5 little sections that John Bays had that wasn't included in the executive.
Yes, Mayor, on the first discussion we had related to the tennis house property, you're absolutely right. That all that property had to be acquired, put together in order to build the site. Once it was moved from where the Bluegrass Museum or old state office building was, and moved to the riverfront, then all that property needed to be consolidated.
Outstanding, Counselor. Any other? What are you grinning about, Ms. Hamrick? It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It's awesome.
It's just like off the top of his head. I mean, it kills me.
I've been studying for 2 days, Mayor.
I told you better study, didn't I?
That's why he works for us, right?
Yeah, he hit a home run. Any other discussion?
May I ask?
Commissioner Glenn.
Thank you. Ed, I've got 2 questions, is mainly for the public's benefit. So we talk about the Blue Bridge lighting. What would the estimated cost be if we were to pay for it, as opposed to the article in the paper that said the public might pay for it, so through donations and such? So.
Right. Well, one thing, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, is that we're already started the process on working on Corps of Engineer permitting, Coast Guard permitting, the engineering portion and design, as well as the coordination with the state of Kentucky to get everything ready, signature ready, so that when the state says we can relight the bridge, we're able to relight it. And my understanding is there's support for that, and it's just right now the issue is that the courts in Texas have not signed off on the settlement for the litigation.
The $800,000.
Where the unfortunate, the man perished.
Gentleman died, right.
So that has to be resolved. But we're doing everything to get to that point now. Cost-wise, when we last looked at this, it's about $750,000 to go with the system that was state-of-the-art at the time. We are looking into right now whether or not technology and advances in technology have brought that cost down. I think that that's still a good number to use, provided that the tear down of the existing system, which we're going to have to do regardless if we relight the bridge, because it is, the state will never allow that to be relit. 1, it doesn't meet code, and 2, it's fried. So that has to be taken out. So 700, that's a long answer to 750,000 is what our,
Cumulative tear out and installation right now is $750 unless the technology's gotten cheaper.
that's what we're budgeting.
And when we're talking about lighting, again, this is for the public's benefit, we're talking about lighting, it could be seasonal, it could be, the colors could be changed for seasons and things like that, right? Similar to what
Provided
Louisville
the,
has.
yes, Mayor Pro Tem, provided that, that the Coast Guard's good with that, and provided the state's good with that. But that's our intent.
Okay, and then the other item on here that, again, I think clarification is required, Central Transit Facility. This was when we were talking about doing this down near the Tower Inn. Is that an accurate description?
Yeah, I think the key point.
That's gone away.
Well, I think the key point to this, Mayor, is that our Public Works Department and our transit department, and the look at this that they've had through GRAD, which really have the pulse on the transit thing, has said that we need a central location. That central location has not been determined, but the need for the central location is certain. One only has to, in the more and more Miller transportation or Greyhound type transportation we get in Owensboro, and they all come across the street here to our transit facility, the more dangerous it gets. And so I think they're, based on our analysis, and we have the best public works director that there is out there, and he looks at this stuff, and our transit folks look at this stuff, and they've determined that not only is it safer, but they think that they can have less turnover, less routes, and save money by centrally locating a transit facility. That was one option at that location, but the owner of that has some plans, and they have some time, and they're going to get back to us with their plans. And so we're looking at all options and all grant possibilities and everything else, but that is one of the items that under the bond covenants this money could be used for.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome, but it doesn't have to go to that Gabe's Tower area, does it?
No, sir. No, sir. Just central location is what the staff is recommending that this transit facility be done at.
Okay. Any other comments? This time, I would like to, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9, city manager items. Mr. Parrish.
Thank you, Mayor. I ask you to recognize Ms. Hamrick for the August financial report.
Ms. Hammer, I recognize you.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The financial report for the month ended August 31st, 2017. Our general fund revenues through August 31st of $6,863,258 were $62,880 under budget. This is primarily due to occupational withholding tax and property tax collections. The general fund expenditures of $7,793,670 were $2,291,224, and this is under budget primarily due to timing in maintenance, supplies, and insurance expense. Sanitation fund revenues of $1,337,722 were $124,368 over budget, primarily due to dumpster services and sale of capital assets. Sanitation expenditures of $592,172 were $1,532,554 under budget, primarily due to timing of capital outlay. Expenditures in transit fund and recreational fund were under budget. And Mayor, as you had requested.
Yes, ma'am.
You had requested a presentation for the viewing audience of what the effective or tax increase has done for the city. So what I've done is prepared this graph, and I'll walk everyone in the viewing audience through what this graph means and what it's telling us. So what this graph is, it's the year-to-date activity. So it's July and August. We got 2 months into the fiscal year. The green bar that you see there, the first one of $6,168,502, that is the revenue prior to the tax increase that took effect July 1, 2017. The general fund, occupational, and net profit represented in the green bar is 1.06%. Now, keeping in mind our total occupational rate is 1.33%, with that 0.33 getting reported in the community vision. So what you're seeing here is the general fund only piece of that occupational. So that green is the total revenue at the old, what I call the old rate.
Meaning that if we didn't have the tax increase, that's where we'd be.
That's correct. The blue bar in the middle there of $6,906,611, that represents the general fund revenue with the tax increase that took effect July 1, 2017. And we increased the occupational and net profit rate by 0.39%. So what you see here is the general fund occupational and net profit represented at 1.45%. Again, the total rate's 1.78, 0.33 going to your community vision. So you can see the difference there in the two revenues. The red bar there is our expenditures of $7,793,374. Again, that's the year-to-date August. And one thing that that I want to point out to everyone is that a deficit is not a bad thing here year-to-date, because the city is very cyclical in our nature of revenues and expenditures. By example, the months of November and December are very high revenue months due to property tax collections, like April, with our net profits being submitted that month. Now, and then also on the flip side, we have some months that are higher in expenditures, and that's going to be the warm months where we have construction and street work and outside work. But one thing I do want to point out to the viewing audience, at what I call the old rate, without the increase, our year-to-date deficit that we'd be looking at today is $1,624,872. That's if we did not take the tax increase. However, due to the Commission's willingness to address the city's projected deficits, that deficit now is brought down to $886,763. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer.
Commissioner Condon?
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
Angela, page 8 of the report, occupational license fee.
Yes, Commissioner.
That differential of $472,191, even compared to last year on actuals, is low. Do you have any idea why that would be the case?
What page did you say?
Looks like it's page 8 or 9. Is that right?
Oh, okay. You're looking at the occupational graph there. Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. What was your
Page
question?
what?
It's 5.
Five?
It's page 5.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, so if you look there, you see the actuals was a little over $1 million. And compared to budget, you're $472,000 down. Do you have any idea why that's the case, especially for an August timeframe?
The one thing I can tell you is that September numbers are in, and it's above. We come in above budget the month of September, so we rebound back some. It's just really so very early in the year to start analyzing the specifics, but it's something that's not uncommon. We're over budget, we're under budget month by month, right?
That's because of pay periods within the month or anything like that?
It could be the timing of pay periods. It could be bonuses paid out. It could be a variety of different things.
That's the only piece that really jumps out real quick is
Yes.
that kind of dollar.
Yes, but like I said, in September, I've looked at the numbers preliminarily, and they come in over the budget of $1.3 million. And so we start rebounding back then in the month of September.
Thank you, Mayor. No other questions?
You're welcome. Anybody else? Explain, I've asked you this, I think, before. Okay, so it's October the 17th, and we're looking at August numbers. So September's already gone by, and half of October. Is that kind of the general cycle of the municipal accounting scenario because of all
Actually, it's really not uncommon for anyone. We're kind of, at the, we have to have everything in 2 weeks prior to the commission meeting.
everything meaning?
Our materials. And so, due to submitting that and due to timing of the bank reconciliation, we incorporate information from Owensboro Municipal Utilities. So they almost have to go through cranking all their numbers to get their information to us, as well as regional water. And so there's a lot of crossing entities of receiving and giving information. And it's just a combination, if you will, Mayor, of that and the timing of our commission meetings. And it just so happens to land that way.
6 weeks late. Yeah.
It
So
is.
that's
We don't have the full
normal.
financial package for September, but like I said, I was able to tell you, where we are with the occupational. So we do have the occupational numbers in, things of that nature, but as far as a final financial packet, we're waiting for OMU, we're working with regional water, and there's just so many pieces to pull on the full financial packet together.
So it's considerably different than a small business that knows every day what's going on.
Yes, I would say yes, considerably different from a small. When I said not unlike a business, I worked at the pipelines, and so
Sure.
it was not uncommon to have this kind of timing with the financials, just because there's so many things going on there as well.
Well, that just makes it so difficult as we look in a couple, 6 weeks, in a couple of months, we're going to have to start figuring out this freaking budget again. And we're 6-8 weeks behind when we get the numbers in December, and we got to start working in January to get the budget by April. That's why I just want folks, because everyone's asking me, how come it takes so long to get your numbers? And so I'm glad that.
No, I mean, I totally understand that. But like I said, we can always get the primary revenue numbers out to you sooner just if you were curious to know what they are. But as far as the full financial packet, it just takes that much time.
Thank you. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
And Danae, she needs to go home earlier,
She does.
She stays late every night. Okay. Help me. All right. I would like to have a motion to file for audit, please.
Motion.
Have a second, please.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9B. Thank you, Ms. Hamrick.
You're welcome, Mayor.
Mr. Parrish.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm asking the commission to consider the following personnel appointments tonight. Joshua Morris, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment, driver in the sanitation department, effective October 23rd. Luis Oliver, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment, road worker, effective October 30th. April Ollinger, probationary full-time, non-civil service, promotional appointment, bus driver, effective October 30th. Alice Berry, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment, bus driver, effective October 17th. Joshua Bennett, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment, police officer, effective October 18th. Kimberly Quinn, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment to records manager, effective October 31st. And Eric Wimsett, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment to police officer, effective November 1st. Mayor, noticing your pattern, there are no new positions here.
Okay.
4 of these are CDL drivers, which I mentioned to the commission we're having great difficulty in retaining. 2 out of the 7 are OPD officers, and 1 out of the 7 is support to the police department.
Thank you, sir. You beat me to my question. Okay. Have a motion to approve, please.
So motion.
Second, please.
Second.
Any comments from the commission? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 9B, city manager comments.
Mayor, I have 2 additional items. The first is I'd like to own up to a mistake we made at the city. We sent out 500 duplicate tax bills.
I got 2.
One to you, Mayor, that impacted 360 taxpayers. We had a programming error in our computer system. We're sending out a letter to those folks that says we're not trying to double dip from you. It's our mistake. Please only pay once.
But if they wanted to, they could.
They could.
My wife said, Mayor, aren't you working down there? They got to bill you twice? I just said, I don't know.
You have 2 jobs.
2
Mayor.
jobs. That's right. I forgot.
The second is that a press release went out on this today, and Mayor, Commissioners, I know you're familiar with it, but for Austin and the public, on September 21st at the Owensboro Sports Center, October 21st, thank you, Mayor, you're more familiar with it than I am. There will be a fan fest at the Sports Center at 6 p.m., October 21st. It's a free family event in conjunction with KWC's men and women's basketball teams. It's the first opportunity for the commission to show off the improvements at the Sports Center, to include a refurbished war memorial, new basketball floor, video scoreboards, concession stands, and restroom improvements. They were actually done on the cheap through a public-private partnership with Spectra. That'll showcase the basketball program at KWC, including a dunking contest, three-point contest. You'll see a scrimmage of the men's basketball team, several other contests. There will be prizes given away, T-shirts given away. All attendees can enjoy free hot dogs, courtesy of Kentucky Legend, and $1 concession specials throughout the event. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, sir. I just want to add a comment to that. Maybe 2 months ago, I met with the various veterans groups. There was a discussion about taking those memorials from war memorials. That's what it used to be called, Sports Center, 1949, I think. And so there was quite a bit of discussion. Commissioner Smith-Wright joined me, and it was there were battle lines drawn. You know, move it, don't move it. And so we came to the conclusion that we should try and do something to make that piece of property more recognizable and more appropriate for the recognition it should receive. We had, like the Korean War Memorial was a tablet basically on the ground where people would go and walk through the memorial and step on those guys, you know, that had passed. So with city manager and I think Wayne Shelton, we decided we're going to fix that. And through the graciousness of Atmos Energy, they participated in financing this because we were struggling to try and find the money to do this. But it's really going to be cool, and really appreciate anybody that's listening tonight come out and show the respect that we should have for the fallen from the different wars over the years. So October the 21st, 6 o'clock, I'll be in a tux, just in case you want to know, and we'd really appreciate everybody coming. And I do again want to thank Atmos Energy for helping us provide this. I keep saying the Sports Center, and I guess that's what we should call it. So the new floor, it's going to be exciting. Thank you. Okay, comments from elected officials. Commissioner Smith-Wright.
Mayor, I
Yes.
have nothing this evening.
Okay, Commissioner Glenn.
Just one thing, and that is both Commissioner Smith-Wright and myself attended the Kentucky League of Cities conference, and it was at the Northern Kentucky Convention Center, and I just want to say we use that as a baseline to compare the success or performance rate of our own convention center. And having been there now, I can say I can see why we're winning. We're outperforming them because there are a number of quirks in the building. It's obvious they've added on. It was a beautiful conference. KLC did a great job. We'd love to have them come back to Owensboro, and I talked to them quite a bit about trying to get them back here along with some other groups. So I was very pleased with what we have here. Sometimes you have to go away to find out what you've got and how good we have it here in Owensboro. So that's my only comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Villada.
Thank you, Mayor. Really don't have anything except to say I'm really proud of my city and to see some of the growth and the momentum that we've continued on with and some of the decisions we're making. And some of these are very tough. And thanks to the staff for all their hard work because they are certainly putting in the effort to give us all the information that we need to make good decisions. So thank you for that. Other than that, just glad to be here. Thank you, Mayor.
I'm glad you're here as well. Commissioner Condon.
Yes, Mayor. I got received last week a phone call from the mayor of Beaver Dam. And after a long discussion of what's Owensboro doing, what are they doing, and how are they doing it, and their parks and everything else, he said, can you come just talk to us for a while? Let's walk around and look at them having a restaurant tax and how much revenues that they receive and what they do with those funds and what we're doing here. So he is gathering some people together there that is actually structured a little different than
he being
the mayor of
Beaver Dam. And his name is?
Steve.
Okay. Mayor Steve. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So, yeah, I think it's Mayor Steve. How do you know me?
As Commissioner Larry.
Somebody at Grad gave you my name to ask a question to.
You're doing fine.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
It was somebody at Grad. And so, I don't even know what my point was going to go to here now. mean, really.
All in favor indicate by
Let's say,
no,
let's adjourn, and so we're done. So anyway, I will be meeting with them just to be able to talk about what are our issues, what is the state going to be doing to us, pension issues, that whole bit, just to say, hey, small cities, we're in this fight too with you guys. Thank you, Mayor.
Paul Sandifer is the mayor of Beaver
Thank you.
Dam.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
another
not
precinct
Steve.
heard. Another precinct.
That's what
He
these things are
Googled
for.
it. That's no fair. I have just one thing. I'd like to congratulate Mark Lusk, Michael Sainer, and Jennifer Haynes for duty with our police department. They were recognized by Sonatrol Certificate of Appreciation for outstanding service and resulting in the apprehension of an individual. You know, I still believe public safety is the most important component of a public official. So, Father Jerry Riney also thanks you. Where is Art? Is he still high? Oh, there you are. I couldn't see you without your guitar. And Don Lahr, customer service specialist. So these things are important. It keeps our community safe. It's a tremendous effort for economic development. And Chief, thank you for your folks. Okay, anybody else? Okay, item number, say Larry?
Public comment.
Larry tells me to go to public comment, item number 11. Members of the audience, that'd be you, are invited to address the City Commission on any matter of public concern that was not on tonight's agenda. Comments are limited to issues within the scope and the responsibility of the Commission, meaning we don't need any county issues. City Commission meetings are held to conduct city business for the benefit of the citizens of Owensboro and the taxpayers. The meetings are not intended to serve as public forums for candidates or campaigning for political office. Political candidates, like any citizen, may address the Commission. At this time, anyone who wishes to address the City Commission, please make their way to the podium and be recognized. Speakers must state their name and address for the clerk's record and limit their comments to 3 minutes or less, please. Since the item is not on the agenda, no response is required from city staff or the Commission, and the mayor reserves the right to extend time to the speaker. Open public forum. It's really nice when you have a crowd, if someone can speak for the crowd. That way we won't be redundant in the same issues. Greetings. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Megan Hill, and I live at 827 East 19th Street, and I have lived there since 2003. In the last few months, our safe, friendly, quiet neighborhood has become a hostile environment. It is being run by a gang of boys who range in age from 13 to 17. They run our streets, assaulting children and adults, drinking, stealing, breaking and entering, and the list goes on and on. They've terrorized the elderly in our neighborhood who live by themselves and who are afraid to be here. A 13-year-old overdosed in a garage 2 houses down from mine. They trespass on our property. They've bullied a child and assaulted his mother and ran her over with a moped. Most of these juveniles can be seen all during the day because they are not attending school. Our street alone has been visited by the Owensboro Police Department over 20 times since September 1st. We know most of these juveniles have multiple citations. We have witnessed them disrespect the officers that show up. These juveniles do not care about authority. If the officers show up, the juveniles know to run because the officers cannot pursue them. If they are arrested, they are back home within days. This is a gang. They have a name and a sign. New kids show up all the time. We are here tonight to ask you to help us. This situation is growing more dangerous each day, and we need the city's help to restore order and stop it now. We would like our safe, friendly, quiet neighborhood back. I've made packets for all of you that has some information and facts. And thank you for your time.
Michelle, thank you very much for presenting your issue in such a professional manner. And at this time, I'll call, I mean, we're all aware of what's going on. And so at this time, I'll call on City Manager Bill Parrish to begin this dialogue.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Hill, and to the residents that live there. I am truly sorry, honestly sorry that this is going on. I have met all this week with our police department, members of the police department, as well as County Prosecutor Claude Porter, to try to understand the system. I've grown to know some juveniles by name because of this incident. I know there are some that repeatedly come back up again. I listened to OPD list off. There are numerous arrests, citations, haulaways of individuals. But Mayor, Commissioners, the police department has reached the limits of its authority. Every time there's a juvenile crime committed, we either respond or grab those individuals and pull them from the street. So we talked to County Prosecutor Claude Porter and said, what are our options? And I don't want to paraphrase Claude too much because he's an officer of the court, but it's apparent to me that we have a breakdown in the juvenile justice system within the state of Kentucky. There are limits to what Mr. Porter can do. Even though he desires to take more aggressive action, he is limited by Kentucky statute. Mr. Porter wanted to be here tonight, but he's in court tonight, late this afternoon tonight. But he is going to meet with anybody from this side of town that wants to participate tomorrow night at OPD's community room. And he will listen to all of it and tell you what he can or can't do. I'm afraid, though, the police department is quite limited in what they can do. And I don't know if Chief or if the Deputy Chief want to comment further or...
Recognize Ms. Hill. She came back to the podium.
That meeting actually got moved to the 25th.
Okay.
It's at 6:30 at OPD.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Chief, Assistant Chief, please share your expertise with us.
As Ms. Hill alluded to and Mr. Parrish, OPD is charged. I know one individual has been charged with 37 different charges. We pick them up. They are released by the court system. In fact, I'll tell you that Davis County, we actually commit 60 to 70% of the juveniles lodged in the 17 county area in Bowling Green. You know, 17 different counties actually deliver juvenile offenders to Bowling Green. 17 counties. In Davis County, we've put 60 to 70% of them there. The criminal justice system has changed. We pick them up. Our officers are frustrated just like, you know, the citizens are. And we do our best to get them off the streets, and we actually have to transport them to Bowling Green, and sometimes they get released the next morning or what have you.
And you are.
They're back terrorizing the neighborhood. We pick them up again, and that's if we can even transport them and lodge them at the Department of Juvenile Justice there in Bowling Green. So, you know, I'm sorry, but we're doing everything that we can, but we're only doing what we can, you know, within the limits of the law. And until the law is changed, I mean, everything, you know, from this day forward or in the recent past, you know, it's like, I hate to say decriminalization, but that's what has happened. It happened with adult court, and now we see it trickling down to the juveniles. When they say that they disrespect authority, it's not just the police, it's not just adults, it's at the school systems and everywhere else. So those are challenges that we face as a community, not just Owensboro, though. It's a statewide issue. In fact, Bowling Green, where the juvenile justice, the detention center is there, they don't even try to commit their juveniles there anymore. They just cite them and let them go because it's just that,
catch and release.
Yeah, just that big of a problem. So
is this something that can be addressed by the state legislature? Because obviously local communities, I bet Ed Ray knows this answer. I was just curious, you know, because we can contact our elected officials in Frankfort to, you know, I mean, it's an awful issue. Mr. Ray?
Well, Mayor, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and that is that the state legislature needs to take some action. What I will say, though, is that typically what's viewed by the residents, what's viewed by the police officers on the streets, is the tip of the iceberg of what the juveniles or the people that are associating themselves with this group are doing. And it's only a matter of time, and I send this out as a notice, that not unlike the addiction issues that we talked about earlier today, as their behavior continues to get more pronounced, there will be consequences. Juvenile or not, it comes to a point where the criminal acts and the conspiracy to commit criminal acts and the disrespect are punishable. So it may not be today, but it will come back to haunt them. In the meantime, I would encourage the residents that are here to, and I'll say Claude Porter, as our county attorney, is wonderful. He is knowledgeable, and he will educate you. And I ask you to see if together you all can't communicate with your state legislatures for an answer. Because between our leadership at Owensboro Police Department and the folks at the Commonwealth Attorney's Office and the County Attorney's Office, I'm sure that they can come up with some legislative solutions to give more teeth to law enforcement, and which then puts you in a better position as homeowners, citizens, neighbors. But let's not forget the other part of this, and that is every child has a parent. They may not be present there. They might turn a blind eye, but eventually that'll come back to haunt them too. And there's parents out there, Mayor. I spent most all of my career before I came to Owensboro as a prosecutor. And that will come back to haunt them too. They need to take some responsibility. So, long answer to a short question, Mayor, but I would encourage, if you all get as a group any proposed solutions, and Claude is your guy, communicate those back to my office. And I will make sure that our city manager has that information, and he will communicate it as necessary to our elected officials. And we will do everything we can to communicate that to our state legislatures, because it's a seed, and that seed's going to grow. We need help. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome, man. You know, and I would assume you're all in DJ Johnson's district. Is that correct? You're inside the incorporated city limits. So
they are.
I would assume that. So that I'll contact him myself. Your community has very good access to our elected officials in Frankfort, and we'll try and begin the dialogue. I know it's not going to help you right now, but the awareness of what's going on, especially with DJ Johnson, he's really in tune to our community, and I'll give him a big heads up. And Ms. Hill, if you don't mind, I guess you've been elected mayor of your group, so if I'll get your address, and I believe once I talk to DJ, he'll be in touch with you to hear your concerns, and if not, call Leslie at here, and I'll make sure. I know that he will. He's just been great as responding to our request. So I know it's not much tonight, but we appreciate you coming in a mannerly fashion, and I will do what I can to create access for you, and I truly believe that DJ will work as hard as he can to begin the process of discussing this in Frankfort. Now, having said that, you know, they're going to be wrapped up in this. I'm sure you read this pension issue. It's the last couple of days of October, first couple of days of November. And then they go into a budget year next year, and so that's the best time to get them, because the first 28 days before everybody signs up, they don't really do a lot in the legislature because they're kind of waiting around to see who they got to run against and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good time. And I'll be glad to help you as much as I can, and I know DJ will as well. And thank you for coming. We've all been made aware of this, so we'll try and help as best as we can. But like the chief is going to elaborate. I mean, his hands are kind of tied, as bad as I hate to say.
Well, I still would like to conclude with this. Just because we cannot control what the courts or legislators do, we can still come out and address the issue that's going on at that time. So if you have situations, please call us. That's what we're here for. Yeah, you do. And we respond. Yeah. So.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay.
I think, did you want to say? Okay, I did want to say one quick thing if I may, Mayor. Is that all right? I do want to applaud you. When I got together with you all, Karen Williamson and I are friends, I thought we were going to have 5 people, and it turned out to be nearly 30. So I applaud you for coming out. I know you're on Nextdoor, which I think is great. You guys can connect with each other. I suggested that. I would encourage you to continue the steps to get a neighborhood watch set up there. And I do want to echo what I think is important here is OPD is doing everything they can. There is no criticism of OPD in this whole discussion because you guys are doing a great job and you've got you know what's going on. We just have to get some larger answers, and what the mayor said I think is one step to that. But continue to communicate with us and let us know what's going on because you've got a beautiful neighborhood. And Triplet Twist, we spent a lot of money in cooperation with you to make that an even better neighborhood. So we want to make this happen. So thank you, Mayor.
Well, the one and only.
His ears were itching.
We've just gone over this topic of East 19th, and I know you've been in court and you made some tremendous decisions tonight and guided people through the pathways of the legal system. But if you'd like to enlighten us with your thought process on what's going on East 19th. State your name and address for the record.
I will. Claude Porter, 210 West 3rd Street. About what's going on, I mean, I can tell you what we've done. There've been several young men. And
that'd be $25.
I'm sorry.
Send the bill to Al Mattingly.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't move as well as I'd like it to, but and of those. Do you have that list still, Brock? I can't give you the names, but I can. One was picked up Monday. He had to be released.
Mr. Porter, before you get really into it, could you kind of explain what I call the catch and release program that's going on? Because a lot of us are not
the legislature has a provision that says basically we're not, and that's true for adults as well as kids, we're not supposed to keep them. Certain kinds of offenses, status offenses for instance, and status offenses are the kinds of offenses that if adults committed them wouldn't be an offense. Being beyond control of the school or parents, alcohol, not attending school, that sort of thing, tobacco. Those are ones we cannot keep more than 24 hours, exclusive of weekends and holidays. Persons who are picked up with public offenses, and those are the ones that would be what we would consider crimes, assaults, disorderly conduct, criminal mischief. Criminal mischief is destroying property. Those are public offenses. We can only keep them for 48 hours, hold them for 40 hours before we have to have a hearing to determine whether they have to stay. And the legislature says we're not supposed to keep them as a general rule for any length of time, just because of several reasons. But that's true for adults. They bond out. Kids have no bonds. There are no bonds available to them. They just, if a parent is able and willing to care for them, take them back, or there's a place for them, we have to send them back to that place or find another place for them. Sometimes that's, well, St. Joseph, Peace Mission. There are a couple other places that we occasionally use if they are not eligible to go to detention. Detention is in Bowling Green. So that means it's a trip either for your law enforcement officers who picked them up, or the sheriff's department who has to bring them back, or if they picked them up, have to take them down there. So it may not be the best system, one that everybody at least wants to have, but it's probably the one, if it's you or kids or whatever, that you probably prefer we have in place, rather than one that says, okay, we're going to put you there, and in a couple of years we'll come and see how you're doing. So that's sort of where we are.
Is there a legislative remedy to this?
That's the legislative remedy that got us where we are.
Is there another legislative remedy?
Absolutely.
To remedy
You can if you can convince the legislature to change that. I'm sure
so you're
that
willing to write the bill, so I won't sound stupid when I ask them.
I'm sorry.
Could you write the bill?
Oh,
because I'm not smart enough to understand it.
I'm not sure I am either.
I'll be glad to champion this cause, because I think
well,
we don't do something for these children.
This was just changed last year.
I know it.
Yeah. And part of that also was part of, I think it was Senate Bill 143. Anyway, a couple of years ago, the same thing happened with adults. There are certain kinds of offenses that we are not, police officers or not law enforcement agents are not supposed to arrest. They're not allowed to arrest unless there are certain circumstances that are in place. Some we can still arrest for, DUIs, for instance, certain assaults, domestic violence assaults, those sorts of things. But most misdemeanors, and misdemeanors are crimes that are punishable by jail time of less than or up to 365 days. And those are the ones that I deal with. Those are that our office deal with, the county attorney's office deals with. That's the greatest number of offenses we deal with. We deal with somewhere between 13 and 15,000 cases every year, so roughly 1,000 a month is what we have. And then we add on the juveniles, which is usually the public offenses are usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 or 500 a month. So I mean 400 or 500 a year.
What's the recidivist rate on all those folks?
Depends on which group you're asking. That's in a lot of them. It's not too bad.
Really?
But there are a number of those that are ones that we see almost all the time. I could probably list you the names of 30 families or so, 30 names, and they would account for a greater than 50% portion of those. Yeah. But that's not too unusual. I mean, 80-20 rule applies to a lot of things. That's pretty close to where that, getting me. I'm pretty close, aren't I? Yeah, all right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Do you want to know specifically about, not names or anything, the ones that are there? I think I was going to go down through.
Okay, you got the floor.
It's your time and dime.
I'm already hungry, so it doesn't matter. Okay. I want you to tell your story.
The first name on the list was just got out about 3 weeks ago. He spent about 30 days in Bowling Green. Another one that just picked up earlier this week, but because he'd never had, at least here, any other public offenses, he was released to his parents on what's called home detention. Means he's not supposed to be out except between after 6 p.m. and before 6 a.m. Another one is still in detention, probably is going to be committed to DJJ. That one's still out. This one got out not too long ago. His brother, however, is still there and will probably remain there. Have another one who is who's been in, just got back out because they had a status offense. Another one who's committed to the Department of Juvenile Justice will be there probably for 6 to 8 months. Another one who's going to be referred to the Department of Juvenile Justice and will probably be there for 6 to 8 months.
We've got that. I think we have that documentation in our book. So can I ask you and Steve Lynn maybe to get together and write us a perfect bill so that we can kind of really address
We can write it, absolutely.
And I'll promise you, I'll deliver it for you. How's that?
Okay.
Because I think that would at least give us an opportunity to tell our story, and whether or not it becomes a bone of contention. I mean, if we're having this problem, everybody else is too.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, so maybe there's a way to look at it, and it's not such a, you know, a freewheeling, because those children are not going to get better as they get older. I can promise you that. And we're either going to take care of them now, or we're going to have to cram oil thing maybe later.
Well, there's some of the research, and that's one of the reasons for Senate Bill 200, the one I was referring to, that became in effect last year, that says keeping them there is not going to make them better. It just makes them better at what they're already doing. So we try to avoid that if we can. Try to find. That's what the Department of Juvenile Justice is supposed to be about. It's not the same as the Department of Corrections. Right. Department of Corrections is more housing. Department of Juvenile Justice is supposed to be re-education. Sometimes works.
So you and these folks are going to meet
a week from tomorrow. We were supposed to meet tomorrow, but
I know
Karen's got some things, and I have to go pick her up and bring her back. And
well, God bless you. I appreciate your effort in this. And you and Steve get together. Let's something that's not perfect, but that's really good. Okay.
We will give that a run.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Can I make one comment, Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner Condon.
You know, sometimes we have made comments about, you know, we pay, our city residents pay county property taxes. You want to know where a lot of that goes? Right there.
Yeah.
To what the county attorney does and how much work he actually puts in for the citizens of Owensboro. And thank you for it, Claude.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Okay. Anybody else from the public? Okay.
Welcome.
Hello. How you doing?
Pretty good. Tracy Payne. I live at 102 East Warwick Drive.
East Warwick?
Warwick Drive.
Okay.
Mayor, I've been here before. My neighborhood alliance, about 4, 5, 6 years ago, we started to try to do something on school traffic issues. I've been working on this ever since. I myself is not ever going to stop, because if I can save one child, it's worth it. Now, we've just recently had a crossing guard hit in school traffic. Well, as far as I know, we've never had that before. The traffic is getting worse and worse at school traffic zones, and it's going to continue that way. All of our schools are building and building. I just talked to the school board. They're rebuilding over at Newton Parish School right now.
For no addition.
I went down just today and looked at school traffic. It's worse now than it's been because there's more students there. There's more people bringing their kids to school. There's more traffic. It's not like it was 30 years ago when they didn't have to have parking lots. As far as I know, you're the only 5 people in the world that can solve this problem in Owensboro, Kentucky.
Well, I would like to include you in this discussion. If you've been studying it, tell us what the solution is.
The solution is to have the schools get their traffic on their property. The City of Owensboro Street Engineering Department has come up with 9 or 10 different ways of doing that at Newton Parish School. They did an extensive study. But the school board has said they will not put their traffic on their property. The reason why is because then they accept their liability. Right now, the liability falls to the City of Owensboro because it's on your city street.
So have you approached the school board and done this?
Oh yeah, we've had meetings and meetings and
not getting anywhere, huh?
Not getting nowhere. They're not going to do nothing until the City of Owensboro, which to my knowledge is the only people that can make them do this. You 5 commissioners up there are the only people that can make an ordinance to get the city school traffic off the city streets.
Okay. I'm going to defer to legal counsel. Is that real? How's that for putting you on the spot?
Sure. I think the best way to answer that question, Mayor, is that ordinances do govern city streets. All of the traffic that is there for that 15 to 20-minute time period in the morning and 15 to 20-minute time period in the afternoon, 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year. Are taxpayers that are paying for the maintenance, the use of those roads. Things like putting up signage that prohibits stopping, staging, that kind of thing are within the purview of the City Commission. Requiring the schools to put that traffic on their property is not within the purview of the City Commission. So what does that mean in the end?
Remedy then.
The remedy is what OPD, and this is my opinion from a staff officer, is what OPD, our crossing guards, and the administration of the schools have been doing for years. And that's education. That's monitoring. That's speed zones. That's having the school folks that are out there educating their parents on the way to stage the traffic. The accidents that happen, you know, if you really look at it, they don't change based on those time periods in those areas. And I will tell you that I looked at the accident that took place where the school guard was hit. It would have made no difference at all had the school traffic been completely housed on the school property to that incident. The incident was you had a driver that had dew on the windshield, didn't properly clean their windshield, didn't see the crossing guard, and there was a collision. That had nothing to do with school traffic. We've spent probably, and Mr. Payne has brought this to the attention, and through Mr. Payne's efforts, there's been education. There's been education at the school district. David Johnson, when he was there, was heavily involved. Mr. Brake, Dr. Brake, is involved in this process. Everybody has the same goal that Mr. Payne has, and that is safe areas. One thing that the entire nation, the more and more we get into parents, which I think is a good thing, taking their kids and dropping their kids off and picking their kids up, that parental time, I value that very much. I take my kids to school. I drop them off. Oftentimes I walk them in. And for a few minutes a day, having a local school in your local neighborhood, which, by the way, is a selling point when you go to sell your house, that you have a good local school within walking distance of your home. So there's pros and cons. But use of those public streets for that small period of time, the best solution, in opinion from a staff perspective, Mayor, is to continue to do what Owensboro Public Schools have done, the Catholic school systems have done, Davis County schools have done, but really led by our police department is education, monitoring, enforcement, and they're doing a fantastic job of it. And I'd encourage us to continue on that path.
Thank you. And enjoy the time with your children, because there'll come a time they won't even want to be in the same car with you, so as they get a little older. Yes, sir, Mr. Payne.
Mayor,
You got one more comment?
You're always looking for ways to save money.
You got that right.
Okay. I've requested it from police chief before, but you could request it and get it. Find out how many hours a month or a year that the city police department has to deal with school traffic issue problems. It's many, very many.
But that's part of our service.
You know, it is part of your service, but, you know, when does it come to the public that you get to, or he made a comment that it's just not in your realm to get the cars on school property. If I want to open up a jewelry store, I have to have a parking lot for my employees and my customers. You know, any kind of business that comes into this town is supposed to have a parking lot to cover their people. The school systems should have to have adequate facilities to handle their people.
Okay.
And they don't do it.
Yeah.
And you're in the traffic on the streets, as Ms. Wright down there will contest to, she has to break the law to go home because of the school traffic. You know, and she even stated it here in one of the meetings. You know, you got to get in the turning lane to go straight. Well, if you have a wreck, then it's going to be her fault.
All right. We'll continue the discussion. Keep fighting the good fight. Anybody else? Okay. Do we have a closed session tonight, Mr. Ray? Did you say you hope not? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
So moved.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Adjourn. Thank you all.